Okay, so I did an unboxing of this machine-wise Sonora previously, but now that we're digging into all of the details, I figured why not just show you guys the whole box for those of you that did not watch the unboxing. So this is a 3D printed case for your knife, which I have a friend, Jerry, who is a 3D printing company. That's what he does for a living, right? And he recently made me this Omega Speedmaster clock. All 3D printed and all that. It's got loom on it and it's super cool. And he also printed something a little similar to this, obviously much bigger, in two pieces to hold the clock for shipping. So 3D printing really just, I'm intrigued by it. By how you can just print something up, like this to hold some, lube, holds the knife very securely, has a holder for the bit, a little coin, and even a little cutout thing for the certificate of authenticity. I just think it's super cool. So I'm geeking out on that just a little bit right now with different colored filament, ink, if you will, with the threads and everything. I don't know. I just think it's really super cool. So anyway, onto the knife itself is an integral titanium button lock. I know, another button lock, right? Okay, let's put that aside for a minute. Here's a little bit of the specs about it. This is number 375. This is their first folder, machine-wise, their company. They started back in 2021 making bally songs / butterfly knives, right? Which is a huge market. I have another friend, kind of related by marriage. His best friend or his cousin married my niece. Doesn't matter. Who is really into the bally song thing. He has a company also. He makes bally songs and he's made some folders. So anyway, what does that have to do with the price of tea in China? Nothing. But here we are. All right. So this is a cool American-made down in Phoenix, Arizona, button lock with a lightly stonewashed S35 VM blade, blurple anodized titanium integral handle, kind of this copper anodized titanium pocket clip and bolster. And it looks like it's just milled into like this side. This is just a milled in piece. However, this front side is a separate piece and you can buy different bolsters for it if you are so inclined, and you can have them anodized different ways and whatnot. You got to take the pivot out, and that's what's holding that in. The way I see it, I didn't take this apart. Okay. It runs on a bushing pivot system. So through the hole of the blade is a sleeve, a hollow donut, if you will. And then there's a washer on either side that runs up against the titanium frames and up against the bushing, not tight up against the blade. It allows for a thin film of oil between the washer and the blade, and you can crank this down. You can't over tighten it, I guess is kind of the point also, right? So you could crank that pivot down really hard, slamming the washers into the bushing, and the blade is still going to move freely. So yeah, bushing system is really a cool way to go. Super deep behind the edge there at the point for a lot of piercing power and strength. And then it does get really thin down in the belly. So you start out, and we'll get to all the specs here as we go. I'm going to jump around a little bit because this is kind of a cool knife, even though it's a button lock and I'm not a button lock guy. You're at 0.075 here at the tip, and it goes down to 0.010 in the belly of the blade. This particular one is S35VN. I think I mentioned they have current offerings. Some are available starting at about $600, $600 in MagnaCut. Okay. Yeah. I mean, we're not even going to talk about the price on this one. The action on the button lock. Now, inherently, the problem with button locks is the detent generally is soft. This detent is soft, but enough. I wish it was stronger, and that's always my problem with button locks. But I do like this one more than most button locks. It is an integral, which again, very much like the 3D printing, integral knives kind of trip me out. I'm intrigued by them and I geek out on them. And for those of you that don't know what an integral is this whole handle is one solid piece of titanium that has been milled out. It's not, there is no seam, right? This is not two halves put together like on, well, pretty much any other knife. I'm trying to see what I have here as a good example. Here is one, the Zero Tolerance 0600, the RJ Martin collaboration. Okay, this one, it has three pieces, but there is one side of the scale, and then a backspacer. Oftentimes with, you can do this with just two sides, and your seam would just be right down the middle. There would be no backspacer. It would just be two halves of the knife. But the fact that it's milled out into one piece, that's a lot of work, a lot of machine time. Okay. It has a micro milling all around the edges. It's all cut out on the inside. There is no internal milling because you just really can't do that physics-wise. But yeah, think about that as you're going through. If you mess something up in this milling action, you got to throw the whole thing away. If it's two halves, you can just throw this top piece away and you still have the back side already done and finished, and it's a keeper, right? So they mill out, if I close it here, they mill out for this reversible pocket clip for the lefties. They mill out for this bolster. They have to mill out for the button and for the pivot. And then a lot of this, weight savings and things like that there. I don't know. I've always been intrigued by the integrals or integrals, however you want to pronounce it. It's a big back and forth in the industry. I don't know what's right or wrong, nor do I care. Okay? But it is a button lock. I wish we could get a much stronger detent on a button lock. Now, the beauty of the button lock and one of the reasons why they exist is when you go to close it, there is nothing in the blade's path. You can't cut yourself. I mean, you can, I suppose, somehow, but there's nothing there. With a frame lock like this one, I have to put my thumb in the path of the blade to close this knife. Yeah, the flipper tab is stopping it there. Now I can reposition and get out of the way and all that. It's safe, but yeah, that is the inherent issue with a frame lock or with even a liner lock. Same difference. Your finger needs to be in the path of the blade. So the button lock is super safe in that regard, and it is super fidgety because you can just push the button and you can open it and you can close it just from the button. You get the timing down, and they're super fidgety knives. All right, now that I have rambled for way too long, it is 4 3/8 closed, 7 3/4 overall with a 3.4 inch blade. You get 3.31 inches of cutting edge, Blade thickness is 0.112 S35, as I mentioned. Weighs in at 3.3 ounces for this guy, which is a great, it's really a perfect 1 ounce per inch of blade. 3.3 ounces, 3.3 inch blade. Overall thickness is 0.393. Works really good in the pocket. The pocket clip has just enough flex and it works really well. All in all, I think it's a good knife. Made in Phoenix, Arizona. I think I mentioned that. So this was loaned in from Knife Life. I will put a link to his YouTube channel down below. Let's do a couple of quick size comparisons before I let you go. I know I rambled a lot about the 3D printing. It's just, yeah. I think what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to see if my buddy Jerry, who owns a 3D printing company, will come on the EDC hour with us and we can geek out live with him about 3D printing. I don't know. Would that be cool? You guys let me know. I don't know. Maybe none of my knife people would care about that and it's a silly idea. I don't know. We'll see. Machine-wise, I will put a link to their website down below as well. You could reach out to them if you are so inclined for a Sonora or a Balisong. And they also sell parts and pieces. If you need new pivots, if you want a different pocket clip, if you bent your pocket clip, you can buy a new clip from them and they'll just send you the parts and pieces, which I think is super cool when companies do that. All too often, there are companies out there that say, you can't open the knife. We're not giving you the tools. It's proprietary hardware. And if you strip or lose the screw, tough on you. You shouldn't have been taking it apart anyway. You can send us the whole knife and then we'll fix it for you. Or, you're just SOL. There's too many companies that do that. I love the fact that these guys will just send you the screw if you lose the screw. So kudos to them. Thanks, guys.